Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 20th of May, now it's almost 12 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment. But before I start, let me first of all wish you a great weekend. I know it's day off for many of you, so I will try to make this update as short as possible. I will go through headlines mainly, and this way probably I will share much more information, and program will be much more informative. And secondly, let me apologize for sound issues. I did try to deal with this for quite a few days now, and this is best that I come up with. I even have a new microphone which is supposed to be better, but I'm not really sure about it, at least for now. And of course I will continue to deal with sound issues, and I will improve it in maybe even today. So that's been said, let's talk about news now. And of course I'm gonna start with the Ukrainian special military operation, and the main topic of course is Bakhmut when it comes to conflict in Ukraine. And if we take a look at this map, we can clearly see, according to this contact of line, that Russian side practically established full control over the Bakhmut already. Only little part is left under control of Zelensky's regime or Bakhmut garnison, which is here on the southwest part of this small pocket. Locals are calling this area Tetris. It's a Tetris left, and this farm area. I guess for this moment, maybe Russian side did already establish control over this place, and this map is not yet been updated. But as I said in yesterday's update, now, as I understand, main topic when it comes to battle for Bakhmut is when and who will announce about end of this battle. I don't think it will be head of PMC Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, probably head of Russian Defense Ministry. Shoigu will announce about it. Maybe he will report about it to Russian president in coming days, maybe Monday. But yet again, that's what is left for now, official announcement, because yesterday afternoon many Telegram channels did share videos of Ukrainian soldiers that were trapped in this small pocket in the southwest part of Bakhmut, and these videos are even hard to watch because you can see how scared and depressed these Ukrainian soldiers are. Some of them did escape, and you can see relief on their faces that they managed to flee Bakhmut alive. So I guess we can say now that battle for Bakhmut is over, and the only official announcement is left. Because it's a weekend, maybe we will hear from Russian side official announcement on Monday. But yet again, maybe Putin and Shoigu will have a meeting today or tomorrow, or maybe Prigozhin himself will report about it to Russian president. I don't know. But in my understanding, that's what is left really. Battle for Bakhmut is over. Of course, it will have a devastating impact on the morale of Ukrainian armed forces. Many Ukrainian soldiers will, of course, regret that Zelensky's regime sacrificed so many thousand soldiers to keep fighting in this city, when it was clear from very beginning that Russian side was using Bakhmut as a trap to deal with Ukrainian units one by one. And I guess relationships between Ukrainian military and Ukrainian political leaders will significantly deteriorate after final end of this battle on the Bakhmut, in the Bakhmut. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Zelensky is running around and are trying to spend as less time as possible in Ukraine itself. But I will go back to Zelensky and his travels all around the world a little bit later. Let me give you a quick summary about situation on the front line. So in Kherson region, it's artillery duels as always lately. Zaporozhye region, same situation. Of course, it's activity in Donetsk direction, Mariinka and Avdeevka. Russian side significantly did become more active in Avdeevka direction, maybe because it's obvious for everybody now that battle for Bakhmut is over. Bakhmut itself, it's not that much hot point at this moment as a center of attention, because of course Russian media and Ukrainian media probably will spend quite some time discussing this battle of Bakhmut and what went wrong for Ukrainian side and how successful was the Russian side. Maybe even Western media will pay attention to this topic, but I doubt that Western media will report very much about Russian success. Unfortunately, this map did lost its way. As you can see, they are not updating Bakhmut area for more than a week now. Almost 2 weeks they are not making any updates here, even though for everybody is clear that battle for Bakhmut is effectively over. Of course, Avdeevka and Seversk direction in general is also hot point. Mainly it's artillery duels between the sides, and Kupiansk direction. Also heavy artillery clashes between the sides. So mainly it's a stable situation, more or less, on the front lines. Nowhere to see, anticipated by many in the West and in the Ukraine, a large-scale counteroffensive of Zelensky's regime in direction of Azov Sea to cut this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia, which will never happen. By the way, you know my take on this topic. I don't think Zelensky's regime will be able to pull off large-scale counteroffensive, especially successful one in this direction. And when it comes to local-scale offensives, as I said many times, Zelensky's regime do have about 80,000 reserve forces concentrated in more or less battle-ready reserves concentrated in Zaporozhye and Kherson region, which is quite enough to conduct some local-scale, serious local-scale offensive operations. But seems like even local-scale operations may not take place, at least for foreseeable future. At least for foreseeable future, because as you probably noticed, Russian side was extremely effective destroying ammunition depots of Zelensky's regime recently, especially in recent times, and warehouses where Zelensky's regime was hiding its military equipment that was delivered from the NATO member states. And if before Zelensky's regime was not really ready to conduct serious offensive operations, now situation for Ukrainian forces are even more critical. So if I was saying like 2, 3, 4 weeks ago that if Zelensky's regime will conduct offensive operations, it will be suicidal mission for them because they don't have enough forces to hope for any success. Now the situation are even worse. So maybe Ukrainian military leadership did convey Zelensky that they cannot conduct successful operations or hope for any success. and possibly Zelensky during his this travel all around the Western states was asking for some more time. That's quite possible. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report, according to which Russian side managed to once again hit Ukrainian ammunition depots and warehouses, military warehouses, successfully during the previous missile strikes. And by the way, during the previous night, Russian side conduct strikes on not just in Zaporozhye region or Kherson region or Dnipropetrovsk region, but also in the direction of Kiev. And I did share on my Telegram channel some video footage about it. There were some explosions heard in Kiev, so I guess this very much advertised Patriot systems or some other Western-made air defense systems failed once again, which is not that big of a deal, really. There is no air defense system in the world that can be 100% successful for forever. But still, as a fact, we should mention that the Russian side successfully managed to strike some military and logistical infrastructure of Zelensky's regime, even in Kiev itself. And this is RIA Novosti, very interesting news in my opinion, because yesterday former president of Russian Federation and current deputy chairman of Security Council Dmitry Medvedev made a statement yesterday. He had a meeting with some high-ranking officials, and he said that from beginning of this year, more than 117,000 citizens apply for a contract in Russian army or join Russian army as a volunteer, which is quite a huge number. I was very much surprised to see this number, because you tell me if it's not impressive that since the beginning of this year, it's only 5 months, already 117,000 citizens joined army, some on a contract and some are volunteers, which is very significant number and very significant support for Russian military. And Dmitry Medvedev said that in the future, Russian Defense Ministry will definitely take in account this high level of demand in society to serve in army. And as you know, quite some time ago, there were some talks in Russia that Russian army should be increased in military, in terms of military personnel, and probably we are on that path right now. Let me continue. This is TASS News Agency's report about G7 summit, which is taking place in Japan right now, and according to this information, G7 countries did call for China to impose some pressure on Moscow so that Russia will withdraw its forces from Ukraine. Well, you tell me how out of touch with reality G7 leaders of these G7 countries really are. If they are thinking that China can influence Russia's internal politics or Russia's foreign policy in such a way that, or Russia's military strategy, that in such a way that Moscow will withdraw forces from its own territory, because we should understand, maybe Western elites find it hard to understand, but these 5 regions, Crimea, DPR, Donetsk People's Republic, Lugansk People's Republic, Zaporozhye and Kherson region, these regions are Russian regions now, according to Russian constitution. And no one Russian government can pull out troops from this area. It's just technically impossible. So We are now in a situation when G7 or leaders, or Western leaders, let me say this way, are in some kind of bubble, some separate alternative reality, let's say this way, and they are trying to operate from this alternative reality when on the ground situation is very different. And that's why many statements from the West just don't make any sense. They are not logical, they don't make any sense, and unfortunately it seems like they are not really realizing it, or they are willing to, if they are realizing it, they are willing to continue this way in some separate reality. And after all, what this will provoke in foreseeable future is that because of this inadequate behavior of Western elites, Western states will find themselves step by step, of course, but eventually they will find themselves quite isolated from the rest of the world. Because I don't really understand how serious people, serious politicians, G7 countries are one of the top economies in the world, at least. And it's hard to understand how out of touch with reality these people are, that they are thinking that Russia can pull out its troops from its own territory. I mean, it's not really matters what G7 countries are recognizing or not. From Russian perspective, what really matters is Russian constitution. And Russia will act according to its own constitution. Who cares about G7 and the leaders? But that's the statements that are coming from Japan now. China is quite active when it comes to some peace talks, in direction of peace talks, to push this narrative. But of course, China will not even try to ask Moscow withdraw its forces from its own territory. It's just impossible. Let me continue. This is TASS News Agency's report, according to which leadership of Saudi Arabia, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, made a statement according to which Saudi Arabia is very much in contact with conflict with sides Russia and Ukraine, and Saudi Arabia is trying to play its positive role to push sides closer to peace negotiations. Very noble gesture in this case. It's hard to have some other opinion, but unfortunately, time after time, I have to repeat that no matter which country, China, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, South Africa, or any other, will try to play a crucial role to peace negotiations to begin, as long as Washington and London are not willing to talk about peace. These attempts will unfortunately fail. That's unfortunate reality that we have to deal with. But because Saudi Arabia is one of the main leaders in Arab world, of course, position of Saudi Arabia is very important. Let me continue. This is RIA Novosti's report. Quite interesting report, I guess, because according to head of Crimean parliament, Vladimir Konstantinov, Crimea process of transferring Crimea during the Soviet era from Russian Soviet Socialist Republic to Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic process was not formalized in legal terms. And according to him, Crimea legally, when it comes to legality, was never even part of Ukraine. Factually, it was run from Kiev after Khrushchev basically gifted this peninsula to Ukraine. But Khrushchev is a former Soviet leader, of course, all of you know it. But when it comes to legal terms, because there are many steps should be taken to change borders of Russia, for example, Russian Soviet Republic, to change of borders of Ukraine, and many other steps. And Russian side, Russian Soviet Socialist Federative Republic should vote for this Crimea to become a part of Ukraine, and none of these steps was taken. And I did hear this kind of arguments quite often from experts before, and I was thinking to myself, if that's the case, then why Moscow is not articulating this? Because it's very serious stuff. It's, you know, all countries basically are operating under legal basements, on legal basements. And if Crimea legally never was part of Ukraine, then I think this topic should be articulated on higher level than Parliament of Crimea. And maybe in foreseeable future, Moscow will also start talking about this. Of course, Crimea is part of Russia in any ways, but for international community, probably it will be nice to see and understand that when it comes to legal means, seems like Crimea was never even transferred legally to Ukraine. So it was de facto part of Ukraine after Khrushchev's decision. But de jure, it was still part of Russian Soviet Federative Republic. That's quite interesting topic, I guess, and probably Moscow will pay some attention to this information to, you know, share it among international community, because it's interesting stuff. So next news is from TASS News Agency, which is quite interesting and strange at the same time. This news bulletin is based on article in Global Times. This Chinese newspaper received or perceived as main media outlet of Chinese Foreign Ministry, and you're gonna see on the pages of newspaper many important articles when it comes to Chinese foreign policy and Chinese take on many global issues. And according to Global Times, Western states are now preparing peace negotiations around Ukraine. And to be honest, I find it difficult to believe that right now West is ready for peace negotiations. But yes, that's what Chinese experts, some experts of Chinese and Global Times thinks. And maybe they have some good reasoning behind it, because we definitely can see that at least in Europe, many states are literally tired with this story of Ukraine. They are tired, they want this conflict to end, they are basically open about it. And as I said many times before, once Russian side will achieve decisive success on the battlefield, I believe Washington and London will also join these countries that want peace in Ukraine. And then, only then, we will probably see peace negotiations which will end by ceasefire on Russian terms. And by the way, as I understand, once this conflict will end, entire south and east part of Ukraine will be under Russian control, from Kharkov, at least from Kharkov to Odessa region. At least from Kharkov to Odessa region. Question is, will Poland, Hungary, Romania and maybe Slovakia will take western parts of Ukraine or not? I believe they will. But it's time will tell. basically. So it's some time to go before they will become active in that direction, those countries. So this is basically continuation of previous topic, and why I am skeptical that right now West is ready to conduct peace talks, because according to RT, US is considering to allow transfers of F-16 fighters to Ukraine. As you know, in previous days there were many statements from Western states, Western elites, that were contradicting each other. At some point, day before yesterday, Washington we hear from Washington officials that they are not considering to train Ukrainian pilots on F-16s because they are not considering to transfer F-16s to Ukraine, or to allow other countries to transfer, to re-export these fighter jets. After that, we did see in Europe from many countries statements that they are not considering to transfer F-16s to Ukraine. And yesterday afternoon there were another wave of informations about this topic, and this time we can see that US is now considering to allow other countries to send F-16s, and also considering to train Ukrainian pilots. So some confusion. I did mention this yesterday also, that it seems like there is some confusion among Western elites. They have some breakdown in communication because they are contradicting each other lately quite often. But when it comes to topic of F-16 or Western fighter jets itself, you know my take on it. They will definitely be introduced to battlefield. But in my opinion, they will not be sent to Ukraine. They will be introduced to the battlefield when Poland and maybe some other Western European countries will enter openly this conflict and will try to establish control over the at least western parts of Ukraine. I guess that's the point when Western elites will introduce F-16 fighters to the battlefield. And the question is, will Poland stop in the western part of Ukraine, or they will move further eastwards? If they will stop there, they will probably impose some no-fly zone over the western Ukraine. And I guess before this will happen, Warsaw will have some negotiations with Moscow to make sure that there will be no direct clashes between Russian and Polish forces. But if Poland will act without consulting with Moscow, then we are in hot waters, because it's quite possible that we will see direct clashes between Russia and Russian and Polish forces and forces of some other NATO member states that will maybe participate in occupation of Western Ukraine. But yet again, in my reading of big picture, that's the only time we will see introduction of Western fighter jets to the battlefield. Because otherwise, I mean, it will be, even for Western elites, it will be too stupid to introduce fighter jets to battlefield right now, or in 1 month's time or 2 months' time, without Poland and or other countries entering this conflict and establishing control over the western parts of Ukraine. Because no one gonna believe, of course, no one gonna believe in this world that it's Ukrainian pilots that are operating these F-16s or F-18s or Mirage 2000s or Swedish Saabs. I mean, it's just impossible. We all know it. We probably all agree that it's impossible to become a fighter pilot in 2, 3, 5 months or even a year's time. You may learn how to take off and land, but that's not same to be a fighter pilot. It's So yes, I'm quite sure we will see Western fighter jets in being introduced to the battlefield, but this will happen only when Western elites, or only when Poland and some other NATO member states will enter this conflict openly, and this may happen before end of this summer. this may happen before end of this summer. That's my guess, but I'm quite sure Poland will definitely enter this conflict. Only question remains for me personally is if Poland stays only on western part of Ukraine, or they will move eastwards, which will be unfortunate, especially for everybody, but especially for Poland, because they will, Russian side will take then strategic infrastructure of Poland as a legitimate target. So then we will end up in direct clashes, and fifth article of NATO will not work in that case, because it's Poland that entered conflict. So yes, it's interesting how will situation develop, but yes, I hope I did at least share my take on this situation with good enough English. This is RIA Novosti's report, according to which Russian Foreign Ministry shut down entry to Russia for some 500 US citizens that are one way or another involved in anti-Russian activity. Many of them are officials, and among them Barack Obama, former US president. I don't think Barack Obama was planning to visit Russia anytime soon, but yes, that's just a reaction of Moscow on Washington's sanctions against Russian citizens, and this kind of game unfortunately will continue for quite some time now. Nothing extremely crucial, but yes, Russian Foreign Ministry did said that they will respond on every aggressive move from Washington with a very same attitude. So I guess that's what will happen. And this is also RIA Novosti's report about statements that Putin made. Let me check how long is this video. 32 minutes. Wow. Okay, I will go through headlines. And yesterday Putin has some meeting, and during this meeting basically he did call Western elites недоумки. It's like stupid. Let me give you exact translation. Idiots, yes. Idiots, or yes, stupids. So yes, Putin did call idiots or stupids to all those representatives of Western elites that are thinking that they can somehow destroy Russia or disintegrate Russia if they will support some ethnic minorities in Russia to create some divisions between regions and Moscow. And Putin said that they are so stupid, people that are thinking that they can achieve this, that they will receive second place even in let me translate entirely. So at the competition of idiots, they will receive second place because they are such idiots that they cannot even achieve first place among idiots. I mean, he was pretty cruel towards Western elites, but at this point, probably we are reaching state of relationships between the countries when, unfortunately, diplomacy is losing its meaning whatsoever. Before, Putin was using sentences like or words like our partners, our Western partners, and he was very diplomatic even during the quite serious difficulties in relationships. But now, I guess Putin find it hard to give any respect to Western elites, and I do understand where he is coming from, because I also find it difficult to pay any respect to Western elites. I mean, how? How are you gonna respect them when they are acting as true idiots? They are probably very poorly educated, and they've been chosen by globalists to be leaders of this or that country in the West, because they are willing to do anything they are told by their masters, as long as they are receiving money and power. So yes, Putin was quite cruel towards Western elites, and I guess he was very right. And he also spoke about society in Russia and society's attitude. And he said that during the hard times, Russian society usually is united. That's historically what is happening in Russia. Even though Russia is multi-ethnic and multicultural, during the hard times, people are not, and communities are not disintegrating. They are doing exactly the opposite. They are becoming more united. That was what's happening historically, and Putin said that this will happen now, and this is happening now, and that's why vast majority of Russian society strongly supports Russian military. And this is absolutely true. This is completely true. Vast majority of Russian citizens are extremely supportive towards Russian military, because they know Russia is fighting now Western elites. It's not a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. On surface, it may look like that, but in reality, it's conflict between Russia and Western elites, Russia and globalists. And to be honest, I think it's in best interest of entire world, Russia to win this battle. And this is also interesting. Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs put in a wanted list prosecutor of Hague's International Criminal Court, who did issue order on arrest of Putin. Once again, Russian response. I can understand Russian response, but I will never understand this political decision that was made by this International Criminal Court, issuing arrest warrant on Putin. Everyone do understand that this is a political decision, and this institution is dead. International Criminal Court is dead. You cannot respect that kind of institution that makes political decisions and are pretending to be some court. I mean, it's just, So by this decision, Russian side just once again highlighted that that institution, International Criminal Court, is meaningless at this moment. And this is true, I agree with this, absolutely. RIA Novosti's report, according to which Patrushev, Russian high-ranking official, secretary of Russian Security Council, did said that RadioActive Cloud is now moving towards Europe from Ukraine, because Russian side, as you know, did destroy the ammunition depots of Zelensky's regime, where this tank ammunition was stored with depleted uranium that was delivered to Ukraine by United Kingdom. And by the way, this is the first official confirmation of this information that I did share many times on my Telegram channel, that during the strikes, this ammunition depots was truly destroyed, and there was some rise in gamma radiation, and that cloud now is moving towards westwards. We don't have some specifics here, but all is known at this moment is that in Poland, in some areas of eastern Poland, was noticed increase in radiation level. And by the way, of course, depleted uranium is not extremely radioactive itself. Danger with the depleted uranium ammunition is that this process of decay produces extremely poisonous isotopes. And when this ammunition is used, and when these ammunitions are somewhere in the ground or in the buildings or anywhere, they are producing, because this decay never stops, they are generating isotopes, extremely poisonous isotopes, and those isotopes are extreme danger. Not depleted uranium itself, but isotopes that are produced as a result of chemical reactions in the depleted uranium. So I guess the Polish government now is very careful, because these particles may, at some point, they're gonna come down on the ground, and unfortunately, ground will be contaminated. That's an unfortunate reality, and the Europeans should ask London why they did send this extremely poisonous ammunition to Ukraine. Why? Let me continue now. And yesterday, by the way, just a few more news that I think is interesting. And yesterday, as you know, first direct flight did take place from Russia to Georgia, and this so-called Georgian opposition that is run by Washington, are controlled by Washington for 100%. They did call for some few hundred of their supporters, leaders of this so-called opposition, and they were protesting against direct flights between Russia and Georgia. I did share on my Telegram channel also this information, and you tell me how destructive this so-called opposition truly is. Just you tell me, instead of being happy that Georgian economy will receive additional support, they are angry, because they don't care about citizens, they don't care about Georgia's economy. They are extremely destructive force, and all they care is about money that they are receiving from the West, and the power that they are hoping to get with support of Washington. But hopefully, current Georgian government will deal these criminals in the best way possible to neutralize any dangers that are created for Georgia and Georgian society by these so-called politicians and their supporters. So-called opposition politicians. Fortunately, Georgian government, at least for now, are coping with this destructive force quite well. So, you know, there are some reasons to be hopeful when it comes to Georgia and stability in Georgia. And this is, by the way, last news for today's update, which is also great news, because from 1st June, there will be direct flights from Russia to Cuba resumed, and I guess this is a great deal for Russian tourists, and also for Cuba's economy. And if tickets will be reasonable, I hope they will be, then I guess Cuba will receive tens of thousands of Russian tourists, or even more, every year. Maybe hundreds of thousands of Russian tourists, because Cuba is a wonderful place, and Cuba definitely deserves, no matter what you are thinking about this regime or that regime. Cuba was under illegal US sanctions for decades and decades and decades, and ordinary citizens of Cuba was experiencing extreme hardship because of this illegal action of US government. And hopefully Russia, China, and many other countries around the world will will activate its trade relationships with Cuba, economic relationships, and I guess sometime in the future Cuba will deal with the economical hardships that being imposed on this country because of illegal US sanctions. So yes, this is good news. This is good news, and this is it for now. This is it for now. By the way, when it comes to Bakhmut, that's a domino area that is under Russian control, and this is so-called Samolyot area, which is, I guess, for this moment, is mainly also under control of Russian side. What is left is announcement, official announcement that battle for Bakhmut has been ended by unconditional victory of Russian side. We will see this announcement today or tomorrow or maybe Monday. After all, it's a weekend for Putin also, so let's see what kind of decision will be made in Moscow. This is it for now. I hope you will find this update interesting, and if so, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like. If you can, please share links to my videos with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, or any other platform that you are active on. That will probably increase my chances to reach wider audience, and if you think this channel is interesting, useful, and deserves to exist in this field, so field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. When it comes to Patreon, tomorrow for Patreon I will upload traditional program, informal talks there, and in foreseeable future I will definitely try to come up with some more extras so that Patreon page will be more and more interesting. So that being said, yes, this is it for now. I wish you a great weekend and take care. See you soon.